Welcome to the Open Book with Amy and Tommy. We are glad to be together again for Bible study this week, which is Palm Sunday, the beginning of Holy Week. Now, we often think of this Sunday as a Sunday of celebration, and we have images of children waving palm branches and crowds gathering around with excitement of Jesus coming. But our lectionary gives us a second option for this Sunday as well, which is Passion Sunday. And so this week in worship, as we gather, we are going to be reading the Passion story. And so we are going to move past that celebration and happy day to a much harder day and a much harder story. So the passage today is difficult. And so Tommy and I, let me begin with a confession, and he can correct his if it's any different. This is a hard and complicated and heavy story. And so we are coming to sit in that and to explore that. We are not coming with great answers or wisdom, but we are coming as fellow journeyers with you to sit and ask questions about the story and what it means and where we find ourselves in it. So I think it's helpful for both of us to begin this time with that statement. And with that being said, Tommy, unless you have anything else to add to that, would you read our text for us?
I will add to it just briefly, because it's Passion Sunday. Oftentimes when I hear the word passion, I think of those things we're just excited about. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important for us to know that the word passion in this context is the word suffering. Yeah. And so as we're thinking about this passion of Christ, we're thinking about the suffering of Christ, really the crucifixion, Jesus on the cross. And we often get that concept when I say this often, probably when we think about the word compassion. When we have compassion, we are co-suffering with another person. And so maybe we read this text today with compassion, to think about the ways Jesus suffered, how all those around him affected that, and maybe how we often suffer with or cause the suffering of. I think there's a lot of things that we might think about in this text for today. So, as I said, we could spend years just sitting here talking about this text. I also want to say that in the lectionary for Passion Sunday, it invites us to read a large portion of this text. Starting, if you want to go back to the Palms, you're looking back to Luke 19 and maybe reading all the way to the end of 23. So during this Holy Week, you may want to think about just starting in chapter 31 and then reading all the way through in chapter 19, and reading all the way through the end of chapter 23 to get this whole story instead of just the smaller piece we'll be looking at today. But today we're going to be looking at Luke 23, and we're going to read 32 through 43. So hear these words of God. 2 others also who were criminals were led away to be put to death with Jesus. When they came to the place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they cast lots to divide his clothing. And the people stood by watching, but the leaders scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he's the Messiah of God, the chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine and saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged there kept deriding him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus replied, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be
to God. Well, this passage is full and does have a lot. And I don't know that we could, in a reasonable time, go all the way from beginning to end. So let's just jump in. And I thought maybe each of us could begin by just sharing a place in the passage that stands out to us for whatever reason. And I'll go first. I paid attention to all the characters present in this story and what they're doing. And there's really a lot. There's Jesus, there's the two criminals, there's the leaders, there's the crowd, there's the soldiers, and all of them are kind of interacting and play a part in this. But one thing that stands out, and I kind of don't know what to do with, and how to make sense of this, although if I'm honest, I think I can relate to it, is verse 35, when it talks about the crowd, and it says, and the people stood by watching. There is a lot of action moving here, but when we think about the people in other parts of the story, from waving the palm branches to laying down cloaks to shouting, crucify him, they've been an active role, and then all of a sudden they just stand by and watch and aren't doing anything. And so, like I said, I don't quite know what to make sense of that, and yet I also relate to it. People talk about in moments of crisis having the flight or fright, and then really more recently have added, and also the freeze response, how we respond to different things. And I think Jesus's whole adult ministry, people flocked to him and crowded and were there to hear and see, and what he could do and what he could say. And I imagine this is not what they imagined would be happening to this leader. And so they just watched and stood by, and so I think, and I wonder about what other actions could they do, could they have done, could they have changed this story had they done something else. So that's a place where I'm sitting.
I think I'm going to bring that into modern day too, because I could, a lot of the things we know that happen in life is because people have just sat there and recorded on their phone instead of getting involved. It gives us a chance to pull back and just watch, so we don't have to get involved, which leads to some, obviously in this case, violence toward another human being, and we feel safer just watching than getting involved. And I think the crowd maybe were afraid. I mean, crucifixion itself was a deterrent. And I'm imagining that if I saw crucifixion on a regular basis, that would cause me pretty much to walk the straight and narrow and do whatever Rome told me to do.
Right.
Because if not, this could be me. So I think the crowd's probably, I think their sense of watching is, I like your adding the word freeze in there. I think it's a kind of a numbed watching. I think there's probably sorrow. There's also fear.
Yes.
And there may be some, there's mocking other, I'm sure in people's minds, they're like, well, yeah, if he just stayed out of Jerusalem, or if he just done this other way, if he just listened to what everybody else said, he wouldn't be in this situation. So maybe a blaming too.
Right. If he would have played nice with others.
Exactly. But that's not how Jesus played.
No.
So that's really good to think about the crowd and who we might be in this story.
Right. And what we would have. And I think, and I think you tapped in on something that is so true. The vulnerability and the courage it takes to respond and to take action. You know, when we see something happening that shouldn't happen, how easy or how hard is it for us to stand up for what we believe is right, or what, you know, and how often and how easy it can be to just walk away and think, well, that shouldn't have happened, or I wish that didn't happen. But
Yeah.
you know, how do we? So I'm not at all suggesting that the people could or should have done anything. But I'm really relating to that kind of being frozen in the, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do.
So that kind of gets me into some of the things I'm interested in this text. There are multiple things, but that kind of pulls me off into the expectation that Jesus would do something. We don't have to do anything. Jesus can take care of it all. So I like the language in the text. To me, it reminds me of going back to the beginning of Lent and the temptation of Jesus. If you are the Son of God, turn these stones to bread. If you are the Son of God, cast yourself down. So the temptation stories of Jesus, of Jesus becoming something of a status symbol, somebody who was going to use power to kind of move back into becoming the emperor of some sort, becoming the king that everybody expected, what a king looks like. But here we have, you know, these language, where is it? If you are the king, excuse me, the soldiers, if you are the king of the Jews, save yourself. So it's another temptation in this story of Jesus on the cross. And then you get it from the other characters too. I mean, if you are truly the Christ, save yourself and me.
Right.
And so I wonder, I thought about that too, is our understanding of Jesus's power when it comes to this concept of salvation. It feels like that the power that we kind of talk about is coercive, or it's regardless of the situation. We want Jesus to intervene when we're at stake. But Jesus's power feels more like freedom and love. So that in love, which I think is the essence of who God is and was revealed to us in Jesus, there has to be a choice not to love.
Right.
Or love is not true.
Right.
So in this situation, it feels to me that if Jesus had cast himself down from the cross or any of the things that he was being tempted to do, it would have been unloving, because it would have cast against what love in its essence is, in my opinion. And so I don't know. Salvation, I know enough about Greek to know salvation comes from a word that we often use in different ways too, to relate around healing. So we talk about salve, you know, SALVE, that we put on our burns or our cuts to begin to heal us. That's from that same word. And so salvation for me, I keep wondering how I define it. I've thought about this for many, many years. Is it spiritual healing? What kind of physical healing might it imply? It obviously, some kind of forgiveness is in there. Grace, obviously. How does it cause me to live differently because I've been saved? I've been rescued. I've been healed. I mean, that word can be translated rescued, healed, saved. I mean, there's lots of so instead of save me in the terminology of religious settings, the person on the cross is probably saying rescue me.
Yeah.
You know, that form of salvation, not a make me a better person, forgive my sin and give me grace so that I can live the life you called me to live. It's more about a rescue. And I think sometimes when I pray, hardest when I'm sick or somebody's sick or we're going through, and I'm asking for God, I'm kind of asking for rescue.
Yeah.
That's my first go-to. please help me to
I
get
think
there.
so. Yeah. And that has to do with preventing harm, the
well-being of everyone. Love is about well-being.
Right. But I'm really drawn to this image of salvation as healing. And really taking that a step further, this is, and I don't know if this is true according to anything in Greek, this is just true for Amy's this week. Thinking also about wholeness. And when we're healed, we are whole, and the impact of that. And here's a story for whatever it is worth from this week. You all may or may not know that our church has a new partnership with Literacy Together, a company here in Asheville who helps adults learn how to read. And one of the things that they have heard over and over again is that the people they work with want to learn to read so they can read the Bible for themselves. They can read the Bible with their children. They can read the Bible with their grandchildren. So we have started a partnership with them, and we're providing an auxiliary program for them, supplementary program for them, which is a Bible study. Their clients are still doing their regular tutoring to work on reading, but those who want to are coming here each week to be a part of a Bible study. And so we have members of our church who are partnered with clients who are in their program, and they're working one-on-one together. So we have a large group time, and then they break into small groups where people are partnered up and they read the text together. And I tell you, there is something that's so beautiful about what is happening in that room. And Tommy and I were talking before we started recording. We are just exhausted. And I can say for me, I am just exhausted. There is a lot that is happening. This is all related, I promise. I know it's a long story. Hang with me.
Keep going.
Almost to the end. But there's just been a lot. Schedules and work and everything has been a lot. Very good, but a lot. But as we were sitting in the room yesterday, and I heard these people reading together, I really and truly felt a healing in my spirit. And it and there was a sense of, just a sense of renewal and salvation that came from the beauty of what was happening in these interactions, and God's word being at the center of it. So that's my long story to say why I'm really drawn to this image of salvation as healing and wholeness, because as I heard these partners reading together, there was something in me that felt like it was being healed. And I was someone who was just standing by watching. So maybe that worked out for the good for me.
For the good here. Yeah, I think, thank you for sharing that. I know I can hear other people in my head saying, hey, wait. We don't want to get away from salvation as forgiveness of sins and life in heaven everlasting. And we're not saying that. None of us are kind of getting to that. What we're saying is sometimes we forget that a component of salvation itself is rooted in many other things. It's not just for another life. Salvation is about how we live today, how we experience God's healing each moment in our spirit, in our souls, and how we do that in community, because we need each other to make that happen. Too often we can try to do everything on our own, and we end up just, wondering, what does this even matter?
Yes.
Is anybody paying attention? I mean, what I love, and I'm not asking for this, so you don't do this week if you're watching this, but I appreciate deeply when somebody says, hey, y'all said this in the open book conversation, and I talked to my Bible study class about that because that was interesting. Or thank you for doing this. We know it takes time.
Yeah.
We know that, this is something that you could be doing other things, but we appreciate this. I think how we can encourage one another along our lives together. It is the opposite of what we see with the leaders and the soldiers who were just there to mock.
Right.
If you truly are this, then you're gonna, you're not enough. You might hear those stories in this here, but to encourage one another and to say, hey, you are a beloved child of God. You are called to be in this community. I need you here because when you're here, I feel a sense of God's healing through you.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that they wouldn't even know that was happening, but I sense God's spirit through someone else there. Right. That just because they're there and they either say a kind word or simply are there present. And I know that was a challenge maybe for that morning.
Yeah.
So I like that too.
And let me add to your initial thoughts about salvation, and we all carry with us, kind of our beliefs and how we make sense and what it means and how it happens. And a lot of that comes from our tradition, which is based in scripture, but there's a lot of ways to view this. And when we talk about someone being saved, a lot of times we point to one moment, the moment when a person makes their profession of faith. But I also believe that it's a lifelong process. I don't I believe, and I think we've talked about this before in this study, that it's not that I make a profession of faith and I'm baptized and I'm finished and I've done everything I need to do. It's that I'm beginning something with that. And so the act of salvation is a lifelong process and relationship. That we have this kind of marker point where we can really sense where that began for us. But that's something that I continue to look for, and I'm active in my life. So I want to jump to something else, but I don't want to cut off if you have any.
No, let's go ahead and jump into something else, because we could talk about this for days too.
We could. And so, so how do we honor what all of this means? Because salvation
it's not as simple as we think it might be. It is about our deepening relationship with God and with God's people.
Yes. And
learning to love more fully each and every day, and needing forgiveness for the ways we don't.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And that's a perfect lead into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is just spend a minute thinking about forgiveness. As Jesus is there, Jesus says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time with forgiveness. This seems like a good passage and a good week to explore that. One initial question I have with this is, who was Jesus referring to when he said, Father, forgive them? Was it the soldiers? Was it the leaders? Was it the crowd? Was it you? Was it me? Was it everybody? So any thoughts?
I hope it was at least me. I hope it was at least me, because I can see myself praying all the time, Lord, forgive me. I have no idea what I'm doing. I think that's a wonderful prayer. But I think I also have to recognize that this prayer is for other people. It's easy for me to be the judge when I have no right to judge.
Right.
And to think of Jesus forgiving those who are closest to him and either standing by and doing nothing or actively mocking and
hurting
him. I think that he can forgive in that moment is a fascinating thing for me. And I'd like to think of this as a universal forgiveness. more than a specific forgiveness, because Luke has a narrative here that Luke is trying to say, among other things, Jesus forgives even those who are his enemies.
Yeah.
And that's something that if we are to model ourselves after Jesus, we too need to pray, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Father, forgive me, for I'm not sure I do either.
Right. Yeah.
Now,
and I think that takes some humility for us to admit and honesty that we don't know what we're doing sometimes. And we do, we do things. That's one of those things that's easy to point to in others, but not always ourselves to, we like to pretend and assume and feel like we have it together and we know, but there are times that we don't. I mean, I do the best that I can. And I, it matters to me what I do and how I treat others and interact with others, all of those. So I'm not saying that, but I'm mindful of how, we're all, just how much we miss the mark, all the things that we do. I appreciate as we've done these prayers of confession and worship, being reminded again and again to ask for forgiveness for the things that I've done that I shouldn't have, and for the things that I've left undone that I should have. Father, forgive me. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And I think with that, that's exactly what I think. I need to remind myself that there are things I should have done that I didn't do.
Yeah.
That's often the things I need most forgiveness for. But as I've thought, I've talked probably on this, I know I talk about sin with other people a lot, that idea of when have I looked to something other than God to make my life easier?
Right.
And that's idolatry. Mm-hmm. When have I diminished the worth of another human being?
Right.
And that's injustice. Mm-hmm. When have I forgotten that I'm a beloved child of God and so is everybody else? That forgetfulness that runs in me. When have I used creation as a commodity rather than a gift of God, of the beauty that's all around us? And if I can think through those things, that's how I try to think of things. When have I failed to love God, my neighbor, myself, creation? Those are the things I need to confess and be forgiven for. Crucifixion is, I think we talked in the last few weeks is, I don't know that I've killed anybody. I've not killed anybody in my life, though I could see myself being in the crowd watching as other people do something and realizing there's something I could have done, but I left undone. Right. And it led to the diminished worth of another human being or violence toward another human being.
Right. And I think you just named something really important is, I have not killed another person, but I have intentionally and unintentionally throughout my life done things that have diminished the worth of another person. Whether it was because I couldn't be bothered or whether it was to make something better, easier for myself. There's
make myself look good.
Yeah. To make my life easier, to make
somebody else to make myself look good.
To be able to have the say, to be the winner, and there's human nature in that. And yet when it doesn't, when we see needs, when we have opportunities, but we know there's cost and there's work and there's, it's hard. So, so I think that's something that this season calls us to. I do too. And I think that is something good for us to sit with.
I want to throw a question out that I don't have an answer to. This is a theological question that I wrestle with, so it's all good. One of the things that we talk about with Jesus' life, death, and resurrection is that Jesus died so that we might be forgiven. That's a phrase that a lot of people use. Jesus died to forgive us of our sins. And when I read the Gospels, Jesus forgave sins left and right before crucifixion. Right. And so I always wonder, like, so what did the cross, what was the purpose of the cross? Because it appears that Jesus could forgive sins whenever.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
we think about so many healing stories, and Jesus says, your sins are forgiven.
Your sins are forgiven. Get up and walk.
Right.
Yes, there's a forgiveness thing that happens in the life of Jesus. I know if I read Hebrew scripture, Old Testament, and forgiveness, one of my favorite texts is Psalm 51. Create in me a clean heart, forgive me for my iniquities, all of the things that King David prayed. So forgiveness is running, and God is a God of mercy. That runs throughout the scriptural themes into the New Testament and up to this place. So I don't think the cross is not about forgiveness. I just think there's also something more there that I need to kind of reflect on in this season. Like what were the principalities and powers that led Jesus to the cross?
Yeah.
What did he do that made people mad enough at him to want to crucify him?
Right.
Is it just that he hung out with sinners and tax collectors, and that he kind of spoke out against the empire and said, hey, it's not just about Rome. It's not even about Rome. It's about the kingdom of God here on earth that's rooted in love and grace and peace. And we need to turn our hearts back toward God. And that whatever he said upset the powers enough that he was crucified. And in this text for today, he doesn't resist the powers.
Yeah.
And that can make, some might think that makes him look weak. But I think the nonviolence, the love, even in the midst of the worst things that can happen, that he continued to love and forgive and offer hope, should be an inspiration to us.
Yes.
And resurrection proves that love is true. That way of life is what we are being called to do. It's the thing that moves us beyond death having victory over us, or sin having its victory over us. If we can see Jesus as the model of love and grace, and then go live that out as people who are filled with the Spirit, then I think that's what we're kind of learning about through Lent and Easter. The cross matters because the cross was the worst thing that could have happened and did happen. But in the midst of it, in the midst of the worst thing that could happen, God was with us, forgiving us, loving us, caring for us, and saying, no matter what you do to me, I'm not going to respond with violence and anger. I'm going to respond to your violence and anger with love and forgiveness. Does that make sense?
That does. I think, I think that's a really good word. And I like ending in a place of hope, because I've been thinking, okay, well, we have these questions. What does it mean? And how are we saved? How and where does forgiveness come from, and what does the cross play in all of this? So we have given you these questions and no real answers, but then we come to this, and I think this is something that's so life-giving and wonderful, and something that I've come back to again and again through this season, is that we are resurrection people. And so the worst thing is never the last thing. And there's always something new. There's always, this hope and promise and possibility. And so
no matter how tired and exhausted we may be, any of us, no matter how
hard this week is,
we might be at this moment, there is hope.
Yeah.
There is joy on the other side. Weeping may last for the night, but joy comes in the morning. One of my favorite scriptures too. And
Indeed.
and God is love, and those who abide in God abide in love. So those are the things we are called to live into. Yeah. And we trust that God is with us, healing our hearts and our minds and our souls so that we can become all God calls us to be. Yeah. That's what I believe to be true.
I do as well. I do as well. And so I hesitated to, if I should share this or not. Brene Brown, and I don't think it's original to her. But I can't remember who. But I remember she's used it, then other people have used it. We'll use the question, what's saving your life right now? And I think that's a good question as resurrection people, when we are tired, when we are stressed, when we are mindful of our faults and weaknesses, looking for God's salvation that comes out of relationship and keeping at this work day by day by day. So,
and while we're doing quotes, Guy Sales once said, as Baptists, we think about once saved, always saved. He said we need to rephrase that to say once saved, always being saved. Yeah. And I think that's a way to kind of think about this too. It's not something that happened in the past. It's something that's ongoing. Saint Benedict said, always we begin again. Yeah. And I think that's the hope of this season. Always we're beginning again in God's love. Yeah. Always we're being saved. Yeah. For eternity.
What a gift, and what a great word, and what a great place for us to land.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
That's good. Thank you, Tommy. So I appreciate it. And thank you for being with us. And we jumped ahead toward the end of the story. We got a little bit ahead today, but we look forward to gathering again next week as we read and reflect and live again this resurrection story of our resurrected Christ. So until then, may the peace of Christ be with you.
Peace.